at presenting something bad as good. For example, in a movie, a female character might be portrayed as having a husband who is abusive. You like the woman, and you want her to find happiness. Then a handsome man starts working in her office, and he's so nice to her. There's an attraction between them, and the budding romance is presented as something good. Soft background music makes it hard to consider her course to be bad. It's easy to keep watching and hope she leaves her marriage mate and runs off with her workmate. And usually that's what happens. So easily, we can forget that Jehovah and Jesus hate adultery and unscriptural divorce. As an example, think about the apostate-driven lies and dishonesties that Jehovah's organization is permissive toward pedophiles. On behalf of the governing body, we say, bleat, bah, goodbye, little sheep.
There's some combinations that this world just seems perfect for. In food, it is a beef tenderloin with puff pastry. In cars, it's a V8 and a supercharger. In contemporary art, it's a banana with duct tape. But there's a combination out there that I bet you never even dreamed existed, but after today you'll never be able to get out of your mind. And that is Stephen Lett, sexual violence, and saying that Israel was right to kill everyone in their way. I was shocked that Watchtower released this video because it doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons. So let's talk about it. First off, I think Watchtower's actually been sitting on this video for a while, which adds to the mystery of why they are actually releasing this. Why do I say that? Well, just looking at Stephen Lett, the last time that we saw him was at the annual meeting, and he looked like this. And over the last, I would say, 2 years or so, we've seen sort of a steady progression where he's looked a lot more puffy and bloated. He even had to give a talk sitting down. For those of you that don't know, brother giving a talk sitting down is a very rare situation. There's a lot of pride involved in being able to stand up on stage and give your talk. It's a real ego thing for Watchtower elders. And so having to sort of take the shame and sitting down is a very rare occurrence. Anyway, he's not doing very well. And then this video, the one that they released just a couple of days ago, he looks like he did maybe 3 or 4 years ago, which leads me to believe that this was sitting in their archive. Why was this video sitting in their archive and they're just putting it out there now? That is such a strange thing, and I'll get into that a little bit more as we start going through this, because the timing seems very bizarre and out of touch with reality or common sense. Now, before we get into why I think Stephen Lett's comments are not really necessary in the current political climate, just because he's going to talk about the historic God-approved wars that Israel would go on and basically say, yeah, this is your land, God has given it to you, which isn't the greatest thing to say, but even talking about this in today's political climate, I know that in the comments section, there's going to be people that have their mouths a lot more open than their ears, and I would just ask for a little pause, and if you want to talk about your personal perspective on what is going on currently in Israel and Palestine, just make sure you're willing to listen to someone that might disagree with you, because it is an extremely complicated issue, and there is a lot of one solution Andys out there that say, well, if they just did this, then it would fix all the problems. Well, bub, I hate to break it to you, I hate to hit you with the cold water, but do you think that you are so galaxy-brained that you've come up with a solution with your Cheeto fingers and you're doom-scrolling through Reddit that no one hasn't thought of for the last 100 years? Do you really think that no one has really given this any thought? And that's why it can be very frustrating, because it is a terribly complex situation. We can all agree that, hey, children dying, bad. That people starving, bad. You can have people like Bernie Sanders and the other, 18 senators that were all trying to get legislation passed that are saying, hey, we need to stop selling weapons to Israel. Okay, yeah, but at the same time, they're selling there is a lot of boiling over currently. So the day after Bernie Sanders was talking to the Senate about this, and also the ICC issued essentially an arrest warrant for the Prime Minister of Israel, Old Nutella. Watchtower releases this video, which is so strange. Like, as things are really ratcheting up, you have the election, which no doubt Trump takes office. Some things are probably going to change. He always has a lot of loaded rhetoric that he uses, and he talks in this veiled way of like, well, we're going to get stuff done. Well, how? Trust me, we're going to get stuff done. It's like, don't really know what that means. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But anyway, I guess just what I would advocate for is please don't fall into any tropes and misinformation about this being a religious war that they've been fighting for 1,000 years, or think that one solution will solve everything, because it won't. But if you're making a good faith argument and you're actually listening to someone that might disagree with you, I think we'll always end up in a slightly better place. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there, because I know that these things tend to get people pretty passionate. And sometimes you have to have a little sense of calm in your life if you're going to digest a very complicated issue. Anyway, what is not complicated are the things that happen inside of Stephen Lett's brain, so let's dig into it.
Now, there is this saying that war can't kill love, but love can kill war. And Jehovah's Witnesses truly exemplify that saying. All of man's horrible wars have not killed off the love of Jehovah's people. In fact, made it stronger. And yet their love has killed off war among their ranks and even from within their hearts. 1 John 3:10-12, in essence, says, the children of God and the children of the devil are evident by this fact. The children of God love their brothers. The children of the devil slaughter their brothers like Cain slaughtered his brother.
So this self-proclaimed spokesperson for God has said that him and his organization, Jehovah's People, Jehovah's Witnesses, have solved the problem of war. Now, the interesting thing is that if you ask him and his buddies what the ultimate solution to all of mankind's problem is, do you know what the answer is? It's war. It's killing everyone. Specifically, him and the rest of his pals are even going to be alongside Jesus Christ when Jesus returns, and they are going to do judging. They are going to be killing people. They are going to be engaging in war, but not really a war, because they'll be superhuman beings and it will just be a slaughter. So they are going to participate in genocide. This man knows this. He has given talks about it in the past. So he's saying that they have solved the problem of war, but also the ultimate solution that he gives to all of the world's problems is war. What is he talking about?
But sometimes in the ministry and other places, when we try to bring up our stand regarding not participating in war, our Christian neutrality, people will bring up the objection about the Israelites. They'll say, well, they were God's people. They fought wars, so why can't Christians fight in wars? How do you deal with that argument?
They say it takes about 10,000 hours to become a master of any one thing. And I was thinking, I pioneered for about 10 years, and you have to do over 800 hours per year. So I'm pretty close to having 10,000 hours in the ministry. And in that degree of mastery that I've earned through trial and error, I have never, a single time, heard anyone bring this up in the ministry. Ever. I would be shocked to find that there are a lot of people that ever hear this when they're out doomsdaying and trying to recruit Jehovah's Witnesses. It seems a little bit strange that he's making this seem like, oh, well, we got to talk about this because this thing that probably never really happens. Now, obviously, that 10,000 hours things and being a master, it made for a very cute argument, but let's be honest, spending 10,000 hours in the ministry is more like becoming a master of how to waste time in the most efficient way possible.
Well, if you're going to overcome that, you obviously have to show them there's a vast difference between the Israelites in Bible times and true Christians today. In fact, let's briefly discuss 5 differences. Number 1, in the days of the Israelites, God's people were gathered into one nation. So when they went into battle against the pagan nations, they weren't killing fellow believers. They weren't killing their brothers. But today, Revelation 7:9 says that the great crowd of true Christians is scattered in all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues. So if Christians participated in war today, what would happen? We would end up killing fellow believers, our brothers. And of course, we know that is happening among ones who claim to be God's people who take up the sword. We find Catholic killing their fellow Catholics. We find the same thing among the Methodists, the Baptists, Muslims, slaughtering members of their own religion. It makes me think of a conversation I had many years ago with a high-ranking Mormon elder. And I asked him, I said, well, what is your position on war? He said, we don't like war. I said, but what do you do, though? If you're living in a country at a time, there's a draft, you're drafted into the military. He said, well, if the government makes this to us, it's their responsibility. We go ahead and fight. I said, do you then kill another Mormon on the battlefield? Because I know you have Mormons in many different countries. He said, well, if I knew he was a Mormon, I'd let him go. I said, but normally, it's not possible to check with each person before you shoot them. Well, he didn't admit it, but obviously he got the point that was made there.
A core tenet of Jehovah's Witness teachings is that Jehovah's standards never change. They never lower. He is consistent. He is the Alpha, the Omega. The same as he was in the past is the same as he'll be in the future. So what Stephen Lett has just described is that it was okay for the Israelites to go to war because they weren't killing fellow Israelites. They were just foreigners, people of a different race and religion and culture as them. So if as long as it's motivated by a hate crime, then war is okay, according to Stephen Lett's interpretation of what God thinks. I don't really understand why they have thrown this talk, which again, I could be wrong about this, but from the archives. This is sitting in their database, and they're thinking to themselves, the anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim hate crimes around the world are really on a surge. You know what we should do is put a talk on our website and make it publicly available to everyone that says that God's okay with hate crimes. Totally fine. I really don't understand the logic of, well, we don't go to war, because we wouldn't want to kill other Jehovah's Witnesses. So that means if you do, it would be fine. So you're willing to go to war with China or Iraq or Iran where there aren't Jehovah's Witnesses? What is he saying? Again, I don't think he's the one that is decided to put this on the broadcast. I think this has been sitting in their archive, and someone has decided, they listened to this and said, yep, I want to click that button and put that on our website. And I just don't understand why. It's completely baffling.
But now let's go to our second difference. Jehovah God, who can read hearts, personally judged as worthy of execution the people the Israelites went up against. He directly told them to execute his judgment on these demon-worshiping people whose worship included gross sexual immorality, even child sacrifice.
This is more evidence to the suspicion that I had that this is a much older talk, because this kind of goes against what they said at the 2023 annual meeting. Let me play a clip from what David Splain had to say about the situation of Jehovah making judgments upon the people.
Have you ever asked, for example, will none of those who died in the flood get a resurrection? Even those who may never have heard of Noah? And what about Sodom and Gomorrah? Will everyone who died in Sodom and Gomorrah sleep an everlasting sleep? The women, the children, babies. And was there not one redeemable Assyrian soldier in that band of 185,000 who died at the hand of Jehovah's angel? We don't have the answer to those questions, but we do know one thing. The merciful judge of all the earth will do what is right. Wait a minute. Did I hear that right? We don't have the answer to those questions? I thought we did. In the past, our publications have stated that there's no hope of a resurrection for those who died in the flood or those destroyed in Sodom and Gomorrah. But do we really know that? The men of Sodom and Gomorrah were certainly wicked, and they deserved to die for what they did. But did they know any better?
So their new updated philosophy on this is to throw their hands up in the air and say, hey, we really don't have the answers. For decades, for 100 years, we've been claiming that we had the answers, but we just don't know. And yet here, we're seeing Stephen Lett saying, oh, no, God judged those people, so it was okay to kill them. Which is it? I think this is a, what do you call that? A little bit of an anachronism. Again, I could be wrong here, but I think this is an older talk that they have put together here, or put out, because I don't think that in 2024 he would say exactly what he said about Jehovah judging them. So it's always funny to see when this happens, when their new light gets so confusing that they can't even keep it straight anymore. So Watchtower, just remember, the internet is always watching you, and you guys kind of suck at this.
Jehovah told them to execute his judgment on these people. Now, here's our third difference. The Israelite wars kill selectively. And we have just two examples of many that could be related. Joshua chapter 6 shows that Rahab and her entire household were miraculously spared. Why? Because Rahab exercised faith in Jehovah.
So ostensibly, if this is an older talk, I can imagine Bethelites sitting there listening to Stephen Lett like, oh yeah, it was nice and a loving thing that Jehovah did when he had wars back then. He really exercised judgment and killed selectively. And then 3 months later, they go to the annual meeting and hear this, well, actually, what happened was God didn't kill selectively. He just wiped women, children, babies, civilians out indiscriminately, but it's okay because he can bring them back in the resurrection. If he made a little bit of an oopsie, sorry, didn't mean to. I find all of their confusing New Light updates and the order in which they're releasing videos absolutely hysterical, knowing that they just can't even keep their own doctrine together.
Let's get our fourth difference now. The Israelite soldiers were required to conduct their warfare according to Jehovah's guidelines. Now, here are just a few examples of Jehovah's guidelines, of many that could be related. Open up to Deuteronomy chapter 23, please. Deuteronomy 23. And notice what Jehovah told the Israelite army, the soldiers. Deuteronomy 23, beginning in verse 9. When you are encamped against your enemies, you should avoid anything bad. Look at verse 12. A private place should be designated for use outside the camp. They would go out there and relieve themselves. See, why? Look at verse 14. For Jehovah your God is walking about within your camp to deliver you and to hand over your enemies to you. And your camp must be holy, so that he does not see anything indecent in you and turn away from accompanying you. Yes, Jehovah required cleanliness among these Israelite soldiers because actually they were sanctified for warfare. But now, what about soldiers today? Obviously, very different. In fact, the Insight book talks about how that they were certainly not allowed to rape any of the conquered cities' women. In fact, they couldn't even marry such a woman for 1 month. Page 173 of the Insight book, you can get a lot of Jehovah's guidelines that he gave to the Israelite soldiers.
This section of the video is no doubt going to get the video demonetized, but I don't really care because we need to call this out for what it is. There is not a chance that Stephen Lett, having studied and read the Bible for as long as he has, or even reading the passages from the Bible here in Deuteronomy that he has, isn't aware of the actual rules surrounding what Israelite men would do to captive young women that they got as war spoil. So let's just read it right here from the old Jehovah's Witness Bible itself and see if this, as he says, isn't considered rape. Deuteronomy chapter 21. We'll just start in verse 10. In case you go to the battle against your enemies, and Jehovah your God has given them into your hand, and you have carried them away captive, and you have seen among the captives a woman beautiful in form, and you have got attached to her, and taken her for your wife. You must then bring her into the midst of your house. She must now shave her head, and attend to her nails, and remove the mantle of her captivity from off her, and dwell in your house, and weep for her father and her mother a whole lunar month. And after that, you should have relations with her, and you must take possession of her as your bride, and she must become your wife. And it must occur that if you found no delight in her, you must then send her away, agreeable to her own soul, but you must by no means sell her for money. You must not deal tyrannically with her after you have humiliated her. Stephen, Mr. Lett, how do you read those rules and then say, oh, I mean, the Israelites, they were not allowed to rape any of the women they captured? What would you call bringing in a young woman? Because no doubt there, a lot of times in these wars, they are being told that they can only spare the lives of virgins. So we're talking about a world where these young girls are getting married at the ages of 13, 14, 15 years old, no doubt. And so if they're still virgins, they're going to be very young. So you slaughter. You are covered in the blood of this kid's parents. You bring this kid into your house and you say, okay, shave your head and polish your nails and get your crying and moaning with over for a month. Because after that, we're going to have sex. And after we get done having sex, if I don't like it, then I'm going to kick you out of my house. But don't worry, I won't sell you as a slave. I'll just kick you out. Stephen Lett, you think that that was a loving provision from a loving God? You are the wildest chimera of a moonstruck brain if you think for 1 second that that is not rape. I am horrified that you have been a voice for the rules, the regulations, the protection of your people for decades. That pisses me off, that someone that can be so delusional as to come to the conclusions that you do, and to think that you are sitting there controlling people's lives. You are making rules that will affect how people live, and that is your ability to think and reason. Shame on you. Shame on all of your pals for I'm not a Christian myself, but shame on you for misrepresenting what most Christians would say is an absolute absurdity. You are going to be hard pressed to find many Christians that'll be like, oh yeah, these guys got it right. I haven't found any. If one crazy observation that I found is that the people most offended by Jehovah's Witness interpretation of Scripture are believers. Like, I got no skin in the game. Neither breaks I think it's all just a bunch of hoopla anyway. But when I talk to my Christian friends, they are like, yeah, they completely butcher this. And what a prime example. So YouTube, don't take this video down just because I said a word that you don't like that rhymes with grape. This is important. And if you have family members, if you have any contact with Jehovah's Witnesses in your life still, make this a talking point. This is something that everyone should be able to agree upon. Everyone should be spitting on Stephen Lett here. If you have any voice with a Jehovah's Witness, please bring this up. Watch this with them and cry, laugh, get angry at this, because it is outrageous, the things that he is saying, knowing the position and authority that he has.
Today, Jehovah fought with the Israelites. So there we have 5 differences. In the days of the Israelites, see, unlike today, God's people were gathered in one nation. So they didn't go up against their brothers when they went into war. And secondly, Jehovah personally judged those executed as worthy of such. Third, the Israelite wars were killings only selectively. And 4, the Israelite soldiers were required to conduct their warfare according to Jehovah's strict guidelines. And number 5, Jehovah fought with the Israelites, giving them miraculous victories.
So please let me know down in the comments below why you think that they release this talk now. Because I can't seem to come up with a lot of good reasons. The best, and I'm not even saying this as a joke, literally the best thing I could think of is that there was someone that clicked the button to publish this video that's like trolling. I'm being serious. Like, this feels like it's trolling. Why release this old video that has old light in it that's not relevant to Jehovah's Witnesses and isn't a good look because of the language that you're using, no matter what side of the political spectrum you find yourself on when it comes to what's happening in Israel and Palestine? The language you're using is not going to be helpful in doing the thing that everybody wants, and that's a peaceful situation where people can stop dying. So I just do not know for the life of me, unless they are just so delusional, they are so lost in their own sauce that they are blind to all of this. And if they are that blind to all of this, I guess it's a good thing that they release this, because they're people, and I know this isn't my most popular opinion, but I don't think Jehovah's Witnesses are as blind as we often think. Because I used to be a Jehovah's Witness and I saw the light, which makes me think I'm not special. Other people can do this as well. It just takes the right set of circumstances. And talks like this are absolutely the right set of circumstances that will wake someone up. Watching this old, balding, angry man yapping about Israel's holy wars and them being justified and misrepresenting the Bible, this is all a positive thing for waking people up. And that's why it is a bit sad to know that we're not going to be seeing Stephen Lett as often anymore with his health problems. He's just getting old. He can't really do as much as he used to. We are not going to get these beautiful disasters of talks that literally wake people up. I think the next generation of governing body are going to be a lot wiser, and aren't going to say as many outrageous things that literally do the job. What apostates often say is, Watchtower does the job for us. They're the ones that wake people up. So anyway, I found this to be a really fascinating video, and I wanted to talk about it. With all of that being said, it's about all I got for you, so stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to show yourself the same kindness that you show to others. And happy Thanksgiving, if you're into that. And if you're not, then just have a good day.